Sponsored all this event. The fact that you can park for free is because of them. So thank you very much. The food, the technology, everything was sponsored by the Dean's Office this year. We really appreciate it. Secondly, this event doesn't come together just by accident. We have a committee that works together so that it can be this successful. And I'd like the committee members to stand up just for a minute when I call your name. Ms. Lenore Chapman, who is really the chair of the committee, has done an awful lot. Diane Gibbons, Darlene Fuster, Patty Doran, Debbie Gartland, Kay Holman, and Liz Radeball, who cannot be here tonight. So thank you. I'd also like to thank right now, as you're giving up cheers, to the other faculty in the department, and particularly your supervisors who are here tonight to enjoy this with you. If you're an alum, we actually have a special little gift for you. So at the end of the evening, if you come up and get it, it's just a Towson Purvis mug and a highlighter that says Department of Special Education. So you can carry that with you. Thanks for being here too. And thank you to all the rest of you. Yes. So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker, who's going to introduce our other guest speaker to you. And Dr. Liz Berquist is like one of you. She could be sitting actually out there because she is an alum of Towson University several times over, right? And like you all left, you will leave us. She also left us because many of you may have had her as a faculty member. So she taught here for a while. She got her doctoral degree here and then left us. You know, that's just how she is. But then she came back. So we're very, very appreciative. She is now the coordinator of professional growth for Baltimore County Public Schools, where she designs and administers professional learning for school administrators and teacher leaders. She has also been a member of the CAS UDL faculty cadre since 2011. Many of you know that, and all the information that you have and all the content that you have on UDL and your courses and in your internship, we can thank Dr. Berquist for leading us as a department in those endeavors. She's a UDL facilitator for the Gates Foundation UDL project and is the editor of Universal Design for Learning, Moving from Exploration to Integration, to be published in the spring of 2017. That's now. Is it published?
It is in like printing.
To be published in the late spring of 2017. So we're delighted to have her back with Mr. Billy Burke, who is the Chief of Organizational Effectiveness for Baltimore County Public Schools, and that is a very important position. So we really appreciate, and he's also a Towson alum, correct? So there you go.
Thank you. Thanks. So we're super excited to be here because we are both Towson alums and because we work for Baltimore County Public Schools and we love to hire Towson students. So how many of you here are current Towson students? Raise your hand so we know who's in the audience. Wow, okay. How many of you are undergraduates? How many of you are graduate students? Okay. How many of you are alumni of some program or another? Ooh, good, okay. How many of you are faculty members? Okay. How many of you have some connection to Baltimore County Schools, whether it be by internship, master's, because you're an alum and you work there? Or you're a retired principal? Now you're here! I'll see you guys. All right, good. Okay, wonderful. So, how many of you have had me in class before? Oh, okay. So you know how we like to scaffold the situation. So I want to explain to you some resources that are around. There is a guided note-taking sheet that's in front of you. On the guided note-taking sheet, which is obviously going to be your choice whether you want to use it or not. It's front and back, and the front side has the goals. So if you turn around to the front, you can see our session goals. So we have two things that we want to accomplish today. I'll let you look at it. So number one, we want to spend some time talking about learner-centered environments, and we want to talk about how that impacts instructional practices and climate in our schools. And then the second thing we want to do, so that's like the big district school focus. So we're moving from big picture to classroom teacher level. That's the structure for tonight. And then our second goal is we're going to take just a piece of that, because we don't have a lot of time together, and we're going to look at one piece of that, and that piece is going to be supporting expert learners through executive function, and we're going to look at how we can support students using universal executive function supports in classrooms. So we're kind of going big picture to classroom teacher level. That's our strategy for tonight. If you're someone that likes to follow along, there's a couple puzzle pieces in the middle, and on those puzzle pieces, you'll see our agenda for tonight, okay? So I always like to know what's going to happen and what's going on. It's also an executive function support, right? So for our first section tonight, until about 5:45, a little bit after, Billy's going to talk to you about that big picture conceptual piece of learning environments across the district and across the schoolhouse. So if you're somebody who likes to use that agenda, as he goes through, you can check it off. I will be checking it off up here with you so you know exactly where we are in our agenda as we go through today. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Executive Function 101. And there's our estimated time frame up there. And then you're going to have some time at your tables and with your colleagues to do a little bit of exploration of some materials and then apply how you might use this. Talk to the people that you're sitting with and others. You all have colored dots that you got when you came in. So we will be doing some chatter, talking, getting up and moving around. You'll be in two groups. One will be a color group and one will be a number group. So if you didn't get a colored dot, Mrs. Professor Digner, are you, lovely lady? She's got some more dots she can get out to you guys. If you don't have a dot, just wave your hand and she'll get it to you. So those are the hard copy resources that are around. If you want any of this in digital form on your session resource page, there's a tiny URL for the note-taking guide. If you brought a device and you want to do this online, you can click on that, type in that tiny URL for the note-taking guide. If you want the presentation, there is a tiny URL for that. And then we're going to have Q&A at the end of the night. And you have a couple options. I have some index cards that we're going to put on the tables. Gracie B is here tonight. She's going to pass out some index cards for us. So Gracie will put index cards on the table. I forgot. And then you also can tweet in your question. And the hashtag is UDLTU. So you can tweet in your question as well. So those are your two options for questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the evening together. So any questions about those resources before I introduce my fabulous co-presenter? Any questions? Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'm going to go back. So Betsy introduced Billy briefly. I'm going to let him tell you a little about what he does. But initially, we talked about bringing a principal panel here tonight. Well, it just so happens that this evening is Baltimore County's Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year ceremony. So all of our principals are engaged in that celebration of the work that's going on in Baltimore County. So I did not have to go to my B list. I actually got to go to my A list because I didn't think Billy would be available to this. And I asked him if he would come share a little bit about UDL and how it's impacted our district and at the school level. And we've done a lot of UDL work together before I actually left Towson and worked for him. When I was here as a faculty member at Towson, we collaborated on some grants. I just have a couple of them up there that we worked on. So we've done a lot of thinking around how UDL connects with teaching and learning. And Betsy mentioned the book that's coming out on implementation. He actually has a chapter that's in that book that he wrote about BCPS and the UDL framework. So I know it's going to be on your summer reading list. I'm so excited, right? But I'm going to turn it over to Billy right now. And again, if you have any resource questions, just raise your hands and I'll sneak around and help you out.
Are you going to click for me? So good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Like Liz said, my name is Billy Burke. I'm the Chief of Organizational Effectiveness for Baltimore County Public Schools. That's a really convoluted title, so I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. I oversee the Office of Organizational Development, which used to be the Office of Professional Development, so I oversee all of professional learning in the district. I also oversee the Office of Equity and Cultural Proficiency. So much of my work is grounded in anti-racist work and social justice, and I think you'll see some of that in the conversations that we have today. And then my third job, and probably what I consider my most exciting job, is I'm the Superintendent Special Projects Manager. So whenever he comes up with a new idea and there's not anybody to take care of it, he gives it to me and says, make this happen. That's a really cool place to be. I hope you all get a chance in your life to have a job where somebody says, here's an idea, make this happen, because there's no better job. You want to go to the first one, Liz?
Sure.
I'm going to start with a small video today that just sort of frames the conversation.
I know it doesn't all. Dear teacher, I know it doesn't always seem like it, but I really do want to listen and learn.
Just my brain is kind of different. So this is what I'd like you to know about me. I have to move, or I really can't pay attention.
Even though I'm not looking at you, I can still listen to what you're saying.
If you tell me, sit up straight, now I have to use all of my brain to do just that.
It makes me feel sad when you tell me to try harder, even though I've already tried as hard as I can.
I actually listen better when I'm rocking in my chair. When you give me a bunch of directions, I start to think I will never remember all of this. Sometimes my mom or dad ends up doing all of my homework. So here's how you can maybe help. Let me get up and move while I'm learning.
Let me look wherever I want when you talk to me.
Let me rock or slouch in my chair.
No matter what, please don't take away my recess. Give me a hug, I can do all by myself. And directions very short.
Just ask me, what does your brain need right now?
And one more thing. My brain might be different than yours, but it's still amazing.
Sincerely, your student.
Your student.
Your student. Your student.
So I always like to start with that video because, first of all, it just goes right to the heart, and that's a way to get everybody's attention. And I apologize ahead of time, I'm a wanderer, so I'm probably just going to float back and forth as I talk. I need to move while I'm presenting. So Liz, if you get a chance, we can get to the next slide. On your table, there is a blank piece of paper. Can you do me a favor and take one of those pieces of paper, and I'd like you to divide that piece of paper into 3 sections. Take about 1 minute to do that, please. Divide the paper into 3 sections. And if there isn't a piece of paper on your table, you can use any piece of paper. As I look around, I see almost everybody's finished, so I'm going to jump back in now. If you haven't finished, just keep working. I'm sure you can do that while we continue on. How many people folded their paper in 3 equal sections? Okay. How many people decided to draw lines and change their paper that way? Oh, she did it wrong. No. See, there was no right or wrong in that idea.
Thank you.
The idea of letting people decide how they do that speaks to your most frequent learning style, or what you're most comfortable with, or what you've been forced to do over time so that it became habit. But the point of that exercise is to really, there are times when you don't have to set the criteria and limits, and it's really important to give students choice because they can figure that out for themselves, and it helps with executive functioning. So what I'd like you to do is, we're going to use both sides of the paper. On this side of the paper, in each one of the sections, I would like you to write down 3 ways you like to learn. Just real quickly, well, I'll give you about a minute to do that, please. What are some ways that help you retain the information? Turn to a partner now, please, and share your 3 and have them share their 3 with you, please. Seconds. Alright, if I could pull us all back together. So in the span of 90 seconds, you just had a discussion of potentially 6 different ways that presenting information makes it easier for you or your partner. What I'd really like you to think about as you go through today is when you sit down to plan, do you think of 6 different ways to present information to the kids in your class? And if you don't, why not? There's not a right or wrong answer to that right now. I just want you to be thinking about that. Next slide, please, Liz. So today you're here, we're in a conference, we're learning about universal design for learning. And Liz has asked me to speak from a district perspective. What I would tell you is that the name doesn't matter. You might work for Baltimore County, and if you do, you might not hear the term universal design for learning as often as you think you would. You're more likely to hear personalization and customization. But what I would like to offer to you is that they're the same thing. They have the same outcome, and they come from the same roots. So don't let it feel like there's one more thing on your plate when people introduce things like this. If it's about providing what students need in your planning and instructional delivery, then it's about UDL. The other thing you might hear, and it's what I prefer to call it, is effective first instruction. I love that term because it really keeps in mind this goal around every time you sit down and plan, your objective should be that every kid in your class meets the outcomes and meets them in a rigorous way. And so I often describe it as effective first instruction. But to get to effective first instruction, you have to identify and then eliminate the barriers to student learning, which is really the foundational ideas around UDL. Next slide, please. So this is a conversation at your table. I'd like you to talk about, as a teacher, what problem are you trying to solve? Because if you don't understand the problem that you're trying to solve, it's almost impossible to get to the end goal that you're looking at. So in a philosophical and in explicit way, have a conversation for 3 minutes at your table. What problem are teachers trying to solve when they show up at work every day? What's the main problem you're trying to solve? Take about 2 minutes to talk about that, please. So I'd like to hear a few of the answers, but quickly, so we're going to share out about 5. Can I get any volunteer to share one that they wrote down, or an idea that they shared? What are we trying to solve?
How to get students to be lifelong learners.
How to get students to be lifelong learners. Great.
Who said that? Right.
Oh, Liz is giving prizes. Yeah. Okay, so the best way to teach students, so what's the most efficient way to make sure they learn the most? To teach your students how to think.
How can I meet my students where they are in order to get them where I want them to be?
Okay, so understanding that it's important to know to meet students where they are and then move them. Liz, how about a few more up front and then we'll wrap it up.
We were saying meet students' basic needs at the door, get them emotionally comfortable and ready for the day before you can start doing any sort of academics.
Great, thanks. I'm not going to try to paraphrase all that, but you nailed the mark. And how about one more, Liz?
Michaela?
To create successful learners.
To create successful learners?
To create just successful adults and teach them the life skills they need to survive.
Okay, so ultimately we're working on citizenship that's effective in the community. So you're absolutely right. All of those things are the problems that we are trying to solve. And there are many, but as a district, I would tell you it's a pretty simple focus. The focus from the district is to get as many students as you can to perform at higher levels and to meet the benchmarks that have been established for success. Kind of a boring answer, but an important answer because there are many benchmarks. Third grade, reading on level by third grade. Getting a B in Algebra 1 by the end of 8th grade. What your SAT scores are, whether you graduate. All of those are benchmarks for success, and that's the problem that the district is trying to solve. Next slide, please, Liz. So on the other part of your sheet, on the back of the one that you split into 3, I'd like you to just briefly jot down, if it's about effective first instruction, if it's about all the things that you said, and UDL is part of the answer, I'd like you to just jot down really briefly, what do you think the effect or the impact of UDL is on academics? What do you think the impact is on the culture of a building? And what do you think the impact is on the climate of the building? And I'm going to define culture and climate for you really quickly in a simple way for this activity. Culture is how are students represented in the building? How are they represented in the curriculum? Climate is how do they feel about being there? Are they supported? Do they have someone they can turn to? Those are the distinguishing characteristics I'd like you to think about. So culture and climate. Climate is how do they feel, and culture is how are they represented in that building. So knowing what you know about UDL and effective first instruction, and all the things you said about how you like to learn, and all the things you said about what the problem is that we're trying to solve, what do we hope the impact will be on academics, culture, and climate? And again, not a dissertation, just a sentence or two on each one. Or some bullets. I'm watching a few people bullet. Remember, culture is how students are represented in the building and the curriculum. Climate is how they feel about being there. Keep working if you need to, but I'm going to pull us all back together for the sake of time. So again, knowing what we know about UDL and why we choose it as a structure that supports effective first instruction, what are the potential outcomes or impact that we expect on academics? Go ahead. I'll get to both of you, either one. So achievement will improve because we're meeting students' learning styles and needs. Same thing, okay? That's a pretty big number one. You don't even need more than that, but did anybody come up with more than that? Go ahead.
You're just making sure that every student feels heard.
Okay, so multiple voices are heard, all students feel valued. Go ahead.
It allows all students access to materials and curriculum.
Important, so all students have access to the materials and curriculum. That's not a new concept, but if you really have watched over the years, that wasn't happening in all places. And last one right here.
I was going to suggest more rapid progress toward goals.
Okay, so more rapid progress towards goals. And I would echo what you said. What we find at the district level is that without UDL or effective first instruction thinking, what happens is that teachers start to teach children at the level that they're working and never expose them to grade level content. And so they always remain behind because they're always working at the deficit level. Where UDL opens the barriers to grade level content and rigor at the appropriate level with the appropriate supports. And so students learn while they're learning to learn or how to learn. And so I taught first and second grade for 8 years, and it was really important for kids to learn to read, because then there's a time when you read to learn. And so UDL made it possible for me to still teach them grade level content while they were learning to decode, so they didn't miss out on all of the information. How about, Liz, I'm gonna go back and just do the culture and climate piece real quick. What's the impact on culture? How students are represented in the building or in the curriculum? Some thoughts on that, go ahead.
It brings awareness and knowledge of like the diversity to the other students and educators in the school. So
we have this idea around diversity, and it's valued, and people explore that as they teach. Go ahead.
They like feel a part of the community, and that they, even if they don't see themselves represented as a student body, they still see themselves represented as someone who can learn and be smart.
Great. And so it's all about making sure people feel included in the learning environment, because without that inclusion, you often feel like how you showed up in the room isn't allowed. And this gives an opportunity to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then finally on climate, I'll just make some comments about that. If kids are learning at a rigorous rate and feel successful because the right scaffolds and supports have been built in, if kids are represented in the room and in the curriculum, the climate will automatically change to a more positive climate, because people feel smart, they feel part of the community, and their culture feels valued. All of those have positive impact on academics. Yeah, and their confidence grows. And so this idea around UDL as a district, I'm going to share a little secret with you. There are really great programs, but unless those programs make it down to really great teachers, it doesn't matter what the district pushes out. So although I'm here to talk about district implementation, what I want you to walk away with today is it's about you. You can have really great programs, but if you don't have really great people, the program doesn't matter. You can have really bad programs, but really great people, and kids will learn. But the opposite doesn't happen. You can't have a really great program and really uncommitted teachers. Kids won't learn through that. So this is really about your commitment to what you believe. And so let's talk about that. What do you believe about teaching and learning? What do you believe about student differences? What do you believe about how students show up in a classroom? And so I'd like you to really think about that, because this is what I believe is the most important part of this learning. If you don't understand what you believe at your core about children and your job in working with them, every child that shows up in your classroom, then every time a problem comes up, you'll have to stop and figure out the answer. But if from the beginning you understand what you believe and the core of what drives what you do in your classroom, you will never have to guess when problems arise, because you will know the right answer. It will feel right, and you won't have betrayed your integrity. So if you've not done it yet, you should really spend some personal time reflecting on what you believe about learning. What do you believe about teaching? And more importantly, what do you believe about the children who show up in your room? And so I'll leave you with this last quote, because it's just, it has a major impact in my life right now, because a lot of people in the public sector in Baltimore County are pushing for us to stop working on the STAT initiative, which is the one-to-one deployment of computers and then learning through a blended learning environment. And they look at a lot of statistics like screen time, and a pediatrics council just came out and said it's having a negative effect on children. And then the PARC test has a mode response. Kids that took it on paper did better than the kids that took it on the computer. But ask any one of your friends, anybody you know who has a job, what are they interacting with on almost a daily basis to get their work done? How are you communicating with your friends? How are you communicating with your family? We live in a digital blended world, and if we don't provide digital and blended access to curriculum, we're leaving kids 50 years behind. And so I leave you with this quote. If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. And UDL is an essential tool in leveling that playing field because there are low-tech solutions and there are really high-tech solutions too that can solve really difficult problems. And so with that, I'd just like to thank you for your time today. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I apologize, but I need to run to the Principal and Teacher of the Year ceremony. So thank you for your time today.
All right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to 60 seconds just to talk to people at your table about what resonated with you from that beginning component of our time together tonight. You can talk about the quote, you can talk about something that Billy said, you can talk about a question that you have, anything you want. Just take some time at your table.
I like how somebody said it was a gift that you know how to meet students where they are. Yeah, but we just wanted to say, okay, well, you should be here. But we now just have to be here. I feel like I knew that was.
Okay. And we are now moving into Executive Function 101. So how are we getting from learning environment to EF 101? Like that seems like a pretty big leap. So I want to take you back to a slide that Billy showed. And this is one thing that I love about the UDL framework. It is a belief set about teaching and learning. And it is something that you can use as an educator to guide your work in your classroom. It's also a framework that if you are a district leader or a school leader, you can use as a way to look at the decisions that you're making. How many of you are familiar with the UDL guidelines? Okay, lots of people, right? So one of the things that we like to say is it's a lens, not a list. So that lens is what Billy talked about. When you are a leader in a district, and in his role as a leader in BCPS, he uses that lens when he thinks about decisions. So it's a philosophical framework too. But the really cool thing about UDL is that you can also take that understanding of the framework and apply it to learning environments that are as within your power as your own classroom. So he talked about applying that to a whole district and a whole school. But let's say you end up in another state where they have nothing to do with universal design for learning, right? In Maryland, it's in Comar. You could end up in the Midwest somewhere where some states know a lot about UDL and some don't, right? But when you get in your classroom and when you meet the teachers on your team, you can apply the UDL framework to your practice. And that's a really awesome thing about the framework because it is that flexible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about that piece. Whether you're here thinking about UDL on the school level, or whether you are a current teacher or an aspiring teacher, you're thinking about UDL in your own classroom, we're going to move from this kind of big picture talk down to something really specific. So some of you have spent a whole semester with me talking about UDL. So how do you put that into an hour? So I just picked one piece. And because I realized that this group has a background in universal design for learning, we're going to do something that is more UDL 102, all right? These are the guidelines. You've seen them, right? So we're focusing on this part of the guidelines that we like to call the expert learning guidelines. And we kind of build up from the bottom to the top. And expert learners, we want kids, when they graduate from our schools, when they leave our classrooms, we want them to be purposeful and motivated and goal-directed and very strategic and know how to use their resources. The definition of a traditional student is very different than an expert learner. So what we're going to spend time talking about today, I just picked one of these, and I picked one that I feel like you can turn around and think about this piece of expert learning, do something tomorrow in your classroom. Like it's the low-hanging fruit you can grab off the tree, right? You can pick that apple, you can eat it, you can use it in your classroom right away, all right? So that's why I decided to focus on this piece, which is executive function, all right? And it's one of the 9 guidelines. We could have talked about any of them, but I think thinking about executive function supports is something that you can turn around right away and use, and it's a universal support for all of our learners. So up here I have the definition that is used pretty much across the board when you read anything on executive function. There's a whole book that was written by this author, but I'll read it if you're in the back. It's an umbrella term for the complex cognitive processes that serve ongoing goal-directed behaviors. So what does that mean? Somebody that works in neuroscience once described it to me as like the air traffic control system. It's the things that kick in and like autopilot, right? When you know that something needs to get done. There's 3 parts to executive function. There's working memory, there's mental flexibility, and there's self-regulation. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with these terms, but just in case, working memory is like your short-term memory. All right, so when you tell kids, all right, I want you to open up to page 17, and I want you to read this paragraph, and I want you to highlight the main idea and the details. And they're like, woo, I missed you, I lost it, direction 1, okay? And then there's mental flexibility. So you are in an elementary school, and your lovely little student, Erin, walks down the hall, and someone has thrown up in the place where she always walks, and she cannot go down that hallway. But she struggles with mental flexibility, and she doesn't know what to do because she never goes the other way down the hallway. So that ability to like switch when there's a barrier in your path, that's mental flexibility. Self-regulation, and if some of you remember the UDL guidelines, when that was created, the people that designed it felt so strongly about the importance of self-regulation that they made it its own UDL guideline, but it really is part of executive function. So this is the ability to like figure out, am I on task? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Can I sustain my effort over time when things are tough? And can I figure that out on my own? Or does somebody have to help me scaffold that? That's self-regulation. So those are the big 3 pieces of executive function. This is a fact sheet from Kennedy Krieger, and I know it's very hard to read up there, but that's why you have the link, and you have the slides, and the note-taking guide. The link is right there. But there's one piece that I want to highlight up here that I think is really exciting, and it says that executive function is a bigger indicator of school readiness and predictor of academic success than IQ. I want to say that again. It's a bigger predictor of success than IQ. That is huge, because guess what? We have the power to do things to support kids' executive function and change the trajectory of their academic path and their cognitive path. That's amazing. There's a lot of things about the brain. If you want to talk about the brain, talk to Dr. Fuster, right? She knows a lot about that. There's a lot of things about the brain that we can't change. There's not. So we have to build scaffolds and supports. But guess what? This is an area that we can change. The repeated supports and scaffolds and repetition, right? That's exciting. So those people that sit in the faculty room and say, why am I going to do this? It's never going to make a difference. Guess what? The stuff that you do that's aligned to this does make a difference. Yep, right? See, Marissa, I miss the enthusiasm of having you sitting in the front row. All right, so that said, conversation. Look at your colored dots. I'm going to give you time to chat here. So I'm going to ask you a question, and your job is to get up and find at least 1 or 2 other people with the same colored dot as you. Don't be fooled. There's regular green and neon green, regular yellow and neon yellow. So, you know, and I will tell you this, if you are colorblind and this is a barrier to you, if you are colorblind and this is a barrier to you, you can use the number that's on there, okay? If you're colorblind, use the number and find a number match, okay? So what you want to do is talk about this. Let me give you the prompt. So I told you what executive function is. People who have good executive function skills have good working memory, they have good self-regulation, and they can switch when things don't go their way, okay? So I want you to talk about who is at risk for executive dysfunction. So knowing what it is, who is at risk to have a problem in those areas? So what types of people? What types of characteristics might put someone at risk to have that? That's the conversation you're going to have. You ready? Find a friend. New friend. Introduce yourself to somebody else. Make a friend. everybody's heading back to their seats, and please don't feel like if you need a snack or you need something to drink or you need to go to the bathroom, we're not going to do like a formal break. Just get up and do what you need to do. There's plenty of snacks over there. Please eat. Please eat. Even though Towson University, special ed is part of Towson University, we do not get discount for Black people, so make sure you have your snack. Okay, so what do we say? What do we talk about? Who's at risk for executive dysfunction? Sarah, coming to ya.
I said persons with autism or like those that really need to.
Okay, great. So, good answer. All right, coming over. Thanks, Sarah. I don't know you, but your name tag says Kelsey.
We said students with like a traumatic like home experience.
Yes, yep. So I want to talk about that one for 1 second. Toxic stress, you hear about it? It's actually a thing. It's a real thing. And for a while, people were like, we don't really have any research for that. But there is a lot of studies on the Center for Developing Child out of Harvard. And there's one that I just read that's on executive function coaching for families to break the cycle of poverty. It's awesome. So it's a great site, totally free and open. So if you want to read more about that, but yes, that is something that's very significant. Somebody else has their hand up over there. Oh, Center for the Developing Child. Just Google Center for Developing Child Harvard, and you'll find it.
Thank you.
Students with ADHD and ADD. Yes, absolutely. So we know that there's a really high comorbidity, students with ADHD and executive function challenges, absolutely. Anybody else?
Students with intellectual disabilities.
Yes. So and a lot of us are special educators and we work with students with disabilities, so we know many of them have executive function challenges. Thanks, Ariel. Okay, we're gonna do 2 more.
We were saying how at some point all students are, depending on their age. So like, for example, flexibility. A lot of 3-year-olds aren't flexible with sharing their toys.
Okay.
So teaching them how to be a good sharer.
Okay. So I heard all students. Okay. Interesting. We're going to come back to that. Thank you. And you gave a specific example of a 3-year-old sharing. Great example. Last one.
All students too, especially transitioning from one level of learning, like going from elementary to middle or middle to high. There's often a disconnect where they're not able to use their executive function. You have to go back and teach them how to use that executive function before you can even get to grade level content.
Yes. So what's your name? Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. So both of these last two, everybody's correct, okay? And up here, I pulled this from the literature on executive function challenges, okay? So we talked about students who've experienced stress. We talked about students with disabilities, right? Those were our first 2 comments, so we got those. You guys are super smart. And then we didn't talk about the lack of environmental or caregiver support. That's really important too, especially for our youngest children. That's why early intervention is so important. Just simple things like, they call it serve and return. If you have kids, a lot of people in here have kids, some of you have like babysat, you're all teachers, some of you infant primary, but like little things like, Kayla, touch your nose, show me your nose, right? Little things like that. Thank you. That's called serve and return. Those little interactions that we do with young kids, they're like building blocks to executive function. And if you miss out on that, that creates gaps in your executive function. But the one that I want to highlight the most is what these last 2 ladies said. And it's when we have a mismatch between what we're asking people to do and what they're developmentally ready to do. How many of you have felt in your life a mismatch between what you're being asked to do and what you're ready to do at any point in your life, right? Oh my gosh, we've all felt those mismatches. And when you think about what's happening in schools today, think about what we're doing. We are pushing our kids. We are not settling for like just the middle of the road. We're gonna let you, get by with just doing some worksheets that are right in the bottom of your proximal development, right? No, we are not doing that. We are pushing kids to do things that are harder because they can, and we should, right? But that creates a mismatch. So it's not just kids that might have once been in the margins that are experiencing executive dysfunction. Yes, we need to take care of our students in the margins and provide supports for them, but the EF supports that we provide, we need to provide for everybody, because there is always going to be that opportunity for a mismatch at some point in your life, right? So how do we plan for this? how do we support executive function in our classrooms? There are some really easy, simple things that we can do, and then there's some really advanced things. I want to give you time at your table to think about that. So just 30 seconds, just what are you doing right now to support EF before we look at some examples? Okay, talk about that real quick.
What'd you do today in your classroom to support your students? I'm sure you're doing lots of things to make it realize you're good teaching them outside of the
Okay, bring it back in for me, please.
Look at the brief agenda thing. It's not like
So, there's something else that executive function is connected to that I do want to talk about. How many of you have heard of growth mindset? Right? Okay, growth mindset. Carol Dweck's work? Okay. How many of you have read some of like the blog posts about growth mindset haters? Has anybody seen that? There are growth mindset haters out there. There are. There's a lot of them now. There's people saying that we're implementing growth mindset incorrectly, which at first they were just saying it doesn't make sense and it doesn't work. Now they're saying, well, we're not doing it in fidelity, the way that Dweck said to do it. So what I want you to think about is there's a ton of research on executive function, okay? So think about what you know about growth mindset and what we just talked about with executive function. How does growth mindset relate to EF? In your role as either a current teacher or a future teacher. I want you to think about that quote that's up there. That is a quote about growth mindset and how that connects to executive function. So one of the things that Towson University prepares you to be is a change agent. When we put you out in schools, we want you to make change. We know that you might be the youngest and the newest kids on the block, but it is part of your learning here to make change with other people, and that is finding like-minded individuals. So when you run across those people that don't believe in growth mindset, they don't believe in what you've been taught here, you need to know what to say to them. You've got to be prepared for those conversations in the faculty room and in the hall, and when somebody says, well, those kids can't do something. You need to be prepared for that. So this piece about EF is a great foot in the door. So I want you to talk about that. But find a number person now. You have numbers on your stickers? Find somebody with a number. A couple people with All right, do we have a volunteer or two just to kind of sum up? If you talked to somebody and that person said something to you and you were like, oh, that's pretty awesome, that's really interesting. Somebody made you think. Can you share what that person said to you that made you think about this? Something that you really agreed with or really connected with you. Anybody? No one had an insightful conversation? Oh my goodness. All right, Michaela, thank you. Oh, yes.
So we talked about how growth mindset is just making sure everyone feels confident in their own abilities, but it's also making sure that there's at least one person on this earth that has confidence in you, because if you don't, it's hard to have confidence in yourself.
Okay.
And yeah.
And I want to extend that to the EF connection too, that's a way to offer kids confidence, is to help them build those skills and teach them those skills. And if you're taking the time to teach a child a skill that might not be content, you're showing them that you care enough to invest in that skill development. Thank you. Yes?
We were saying that, we were saying, But we were saying that a lot of times students that have executive functioning issues will often kind of get left behind, or teachers will say like, oh, they don't have the possibility to grow, going on with this like growth mindset. So a lot of times, just because they have problems with executive functioning doesn't mean they don't have the potential for growth still.
Great, absolutely, thank you. Everybody has the potential for that growth. And when we think and learn more about EF, we realize that we can change what's happening with that student. We have that power. That is exciting as a teacher, right? You're doing all of this work and it can absolutely make an impact. That's awesome, and that's really powerful for the impact that you can have in a classroom. So how does this kind of fit together with what we talked about at the very beginning, with this whole concept of universal design? I'm going to read you this quote. There's a lot of text up here, and I see some of you have it on your devices. I'm going to read you this. It says, the most consistent finding to emerge from the interdisciplinary study of learning is that when it comes to learning, natural variability is the rule and not the exception. What is perhaps most important to understand about learner variability is not that it exists, but that not all of it is random. Because some variability is systematic, you can design for it in advance. And this approach of designing in advance is called, yes, universal design for learning. So at your tables right now, I want you to put your cups on yellow. Most of them are in yellow. That shows me that you're working and you're thinking, okay? And I want you to talk about how you can design in advance to support kids with executive function issues, okay? So when you have challenges in EF, they present in these ways: emotional control, impulse control, flexibility, working memory, planning, prioritizing, self-monitoring, task initiation, organization. Do you have to have all of these barriers to have an EF challenge? No. You can just have one of them. Some kids just have one of these areas that's a barrier, okay? Some have all. So I want you to think, if we know, remember, UDO is about planning in advance. It is finding the patterns and variability. That's like a weird thing. The first time I heard it, I'm like, wait a second. Variability is everything being different. Patterns repeat. So what does that mean? But really, that's what we have to do as teachers. We find those patterns because it's systematic, and that's how we plan in advance. We cannot plan for every single thing, right? It's very hard. We are not writing individual plans for every kid in our room. We can look at patterns in those students and plan in advance based on those patterns. And we will catch so many more kids. Now, does that say, somebody once asked me, well, does that mean that like IEPs aren't going to exist? No, absolutely not. That is a very specific set of things that we need to do for a student with a disability, and they might fall outside of those supports. But guess what? A lot of kids and the things that are on their IEPs, when we do those, they work for a lot of other kids. Right? So those are universal supports. Things that used to be on IEPs only, like graphic organizers and text-to-speech. We use those things all the time for all of our students. So at your tables, I want you to think specifically. Just pick one of these areas. All right, just pick one. Emotional control, self-monitoring, organization. Just pick one at your table. And I want you to talk about how you can support executive function related to that area. All right? If you need help, if you're not sure of the question, put your cup onto red, right? If you are working, keep it on yellow. When you're done your discussion and you have something to share, turn your cup to green. And I'm going to give you one example, okay? At my table, let's say I'm sitting here with these friends, all right, right here, and we decide we're going to talk about organization. A pattern in our students, we're middle school teachers, okay? A pattern in our middle school students is that they never remember to turn in their papers at the end of class, so they're always losing their papers. So a simple EF support would be labeled bins in the classroom. That's a support. So that's the discussion I want you to have. See if you can come up with a couple different strategies to support one of these areas of EF, okay? All right, so yellow is you're working, green is you're ready to move on, and red is you need help.
Yes, love it.
Four. tables in green, 6 tables in green. Lots of tables in green. So when we have about 90% of our tables in green, we're going to ask for some people to share. Okay, so we've got a lot of ideas here because we've got a lot of green cups. So anybody want to share something that they have found really useful? Anybody? Anybody? All right.
So I teach 3-year-olds with special needs in Baltimore County, and something that's really important for them is the task initiation and gaining that independence. So in my classroom every day, when they first thing when they come in, they check their visual schedules, and they have table time. So that's like an independent work task that they have to complete. And inside that basket, there's a visual of the end result, what that should look like, what it starts like, and what the end result is. So. And then they're expected to put it away and clean up and move on to the next.
Wonderful. Thank you. So that task initiation support, could you do that in a secondary setting? Yes? Where, how? Is that something? Anybody? Jillian?
I'm in CALS in high school. And what we do is we provide our students with a lot of supports with visuals, and every student has a schedule, and it'll say like you need to have a calm body and a picture and like the subject matter that we're doing. So they either get a happy face, a straight face, or a frowny face, and you have to say, do you think you earned a happy face, or tell me why. Were you calm? Did you? So we do a lot of supports like that, and then if you give a frowny face, like, well, why did you do this? Did you follow directions? Did you have a calm body? Did you work through it? So that's how we do it, and it works.
So the physical act of doing that initiates the task. They know they're transitioning from one thing to another, but you also give an example of something else that's up there, which is self-monitoring, right? And then both of those were examples in self-contained settings, right? Could you do something like this in an inclusive environment? Yes. Anybody have an example there?
Well, I'm in a 3rd grade general education setting right now, and we do when they turn their paper into the turn-in bin, they have to highlight their name with either green, yellow, or pink, showing like how they think they did on it, and also make sure that they like put their name on the paper.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's 2 things. That's self-monitoring, and that's also an organizational support too, right? Great. Okay, so nobody had trouble coming up with anything for executive function support. That is fantastic, because that tells me that you are already thinking about these things. So when you go out into schools, it should be the expectation that these supports exist in learning environments before you even start planning your lesson. We're working in Baltimore County right now to kind of get people thinking about your learning environment design first. What are the support options that are in place in every classroom that have to be there first? And then you think about planning your lesson. But you've got to have these universal supports in place first. They're only going to make your lesson plan stronger. A lot of you who had the UDL class with me, we talk about that in the beginning, right? What are the things that you're going to do every day? And then because you have those in place, it makes your instruction stronger. You still need to know how to write a well-planned lesson, right? You still need to know how to unit plan and long-range plan. But if we can put some of these universal supports in place, we're going to help our students who are in the margins, but we're really going to help all of our students who might be experiencing that mismatch. So it was easy for you to come up with some things. Next question. Could you come up with something for all of these right away? Or would you need to think about it a little bit more? Okay, all right, mixed responses here. So this is what I'd like to do, just for a couple minutes. So if you're a checker-offer, and you're looking at our agenda, you can check off Executive Function 101. I hope you can explain what it is and talk about how it relates to your practice. And I want to give you a little bit of time to explore more about those executive function supports, because there is so much out there on supporting EF in classrooms, and think about how you're going to apply it. So what I have created for you, there's 3 Padlets. And the Padlet addresses are linked on the note-taking guide. So if you pulled up the digital copy of the note-taking guide, you can just click on the Padlet links and you can explore the resources. If you have a phone or a device and you didn't pull it up, on the back of the note-taking guide, because now we're on the back section, we're in our third chunk. So if you look on the back of the note-taking guide, it has exploration and application. There's 3 Padlet links on there. The picture that I have up here is the middle school Padlet. So if you're in a middle school, you might want to explore that. If you're in a high school Padlet, and then there's an elementary school Padlet. And the way that the Padlet is organized is by these supports right here. So you'll see on the Padlet emotional control, and 2 or 3 places that you can go to learn more about emotional control. Working memory, 2 or 3 places you can go to learn more about working memory. That's how the Padlet is organized. So the goal is, if I were you and I was a classroom teacher or a pre-service teacher, I might think, wow, I've got great supports for organization and great supports for self-monitoring, but I want to look at working memory. I want to enhance my knowledge of supporting working memory. I would look on the Padlet for the bold face that says working memory and explore those sites. So there's no password, they're open, you can check those out. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to check out the Padlet that matches your area, okay? And I'm going to ask you on the back, it has the directions, it says 10 minutes to explore. We're going to take about 7 minutes just to kind of check out one of those Padlets. And then I want you to talk to a colleague at your table, something you found on the Padlet that you could turn around and apply in your classroom. So I see a bunch of people looking at it on their phones right now, so you find something that, oh, I never thought about this. So we're going to have 7 minutes of exploration and then 4 or 5 minutes of talking about how you can apply something. If you are not an elementary, middle, or a high school person, and none of those work for you, there is a 4th option. You can come up to the front with me, and there's an empty table, and we're going to talk about a case study example of a high school with 3,400 students that has been working on UDL implementation for 3 years, and they've put in a lot of supports around executive function, and they've seen some major success, especially with their students with disabilities. So if you want to learn about that, then we're going to come up to the front and have that little case study discussion, okay? So I'm going to check back in about 7 or 8 minutes. If anybody wants to have a case study discussion, you can meet me in the front. And if you could put your cups on yellow so I know you're working, that would be awesome. So explore first, talk second, and quarter of, we're coming back together. Quarter of, we're coming back together. Awesome. All right. Maybe we'll have somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know what I typed.
If there's anybody else for the case study discussion, come on up to the front.
They started with UDL for like a bunch of teachers. They went to full inclusion when you were 4 years ago. And it was like full inclusion. Yeah, go to be a full teacher. Like, what is that? Yeah, so for sure. It's transfer. Yeah. That's just not today. Yeah. But then at the end of that year, they had like all the initiatives. They signed up for everything. Yeah. So they aligned all of it. About the construction. And then the second year, we added a new teachers being a leadership class, and we got really intense professional development and true the whole staff just got exploration and then this year we added other options. So more support to working on advocacy. We did qualitative interviews. And things that surprise us that I think this is not every year. But this is the stuff that I want to show you guys. So they have a person whose job is just data. And 2 hours just work out for everything. So these are 2 teachers who were in UDL and they had half of them were referrals. She has one that's very coming in 30 minutes. That was awesome. I didn't feel okay. They were going to ask me where. So that was and then this is awesome. The teams is like their standardized assessment. So the biology, they like So then the cops are trying to buy things
when they walked in here today. That is what I'm looking for, a brand new idea. All right, you ready? Okay. Build up.
For me, I was looking on the Padlet for ideas about flexibility, because I feel like that's a tough area for me to come up for ideas for. So some of the things that I saw were just really simple, like ask more open-ended questions, or tell different versions of stories, look up stories in other countries, or have them create an alternative ending of a story to kind of create this flexibility and to realize different things can happen in different ways. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
I was looking into emotional issues, and because I feel like as a student teacher, it's such a short period of time to try and deal with that. So it was really good to experience it through reading, and the gratitude journal was really cool. I thought that was awesome. That if they're getting too emotional or angry, to write something that they're grateful for in a journal, so that you can break away from the situation and realize that, oh, this is something I'm thankful for, to bring me back to being confident.
And that is actually a great adult strategy too. Billy, who was here, he does this presentation on happiness in the workplace, which everyone at first was like, what? But it's awesome. We did it at our CNI retreat, and now everybody wants him to do it. But that's one of the strategies, is writing down. You guys remember that. First year teachers, it is really hard. It is. So remember what you're grateful for and surround yourself with positive people. So that's a great strategy for kids and adults. Awesome. Okay, one more.
I was looking at some information on impulse control. I have some kiddos that are struggling with that right now. Specifically for ADHD, they talked about having a daily schedule up on the board and having the students cross things off to give them a sense of control. And I thought that was a great specific strategy that I could start using tomorrow.
Awesome. Yay. All right. I love finding strategies that you can use tomorrow. That is really important because teaching is super busy, so you find those resources that you like and you follow them and you use them. So I hope these Padlets are useful to you. They'll stay up, lots of different ideas. Not the end-all be-all, there's many other things that you could put on there, but thank you for taking the time to explore and then apply. And that's really important. I know some of you have heard this from me before, but it's important that you think about when you find the resources, how am I going to use it? Why am I using this? Think about that application and make sure it's connected back to those standards and what your students need. So those were all really great examples. So again, we're back here on our agenda. We've now covered our application and exploration, and we are at our final chunk of the puzzle piece today. Taylor, do you have a hot date or something? What's that?
She wishes.
You're just oh no! You're just excited for Q&A. Okay, so questions and answers. You know what, Taylor? I'm going to give you my first door prize of the night, like significant door prize, because I want you to feel, after we gave you a hard time, where's my door prizes? Loved, and in growth mindset mode. You get my first UDL now.
I want that.
Wait, that was so nice. Are you feeling better inside now?
I'm still red, but yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So Q&A, you've got two options. There's index cards that Gracie passed out. If you have a question on your index card, you can write it on your index card, or you can tweet your question to me. And when you tweet it, you have to tweet it. It's on the sheet. It says @LizBerquist, but you have to use the hashtag UDLTU, or I need to see your question. So you can write a question and then type in hashtag UDLTU. Just as an aside, how many of you use Twitter? Okay, how many of you use TweetDeck? Oh my gosh, Christmas morning here. I was so excited when I found out about TweetDeck. I'm going to do a really quick tangent. So this is TweetDeck. You can set up a hashtag to follow. So you know when you follow lots of things on Twitter, it just runs together all the time, right? Okay, if you set up a TweetDeck, you can add columns. So like right now, I'm following hashtag UDLTU. I'm following hashtag UDLIRN. I'm following hashtag BCPS stat. I'm following hashtag TeacherEdChat. So if I want to get into any of those conversations, I can just use that column to scroll through. So I won't see any tweets that don't have to do with BCPS stat because I'm looking at this column. So right now, the only tweets that I'm concerned with are your tweets, okay? So, and I'm not connected to the internet. Sweet! Okay, so let me reconnect. So I will go fast. That's how they do it. They use something like TweetDeck. There's another one called Hootsuite that does Facebook and Twitter. So just like little social media ideas. All right, so, all right, UDL to you, pick me, pick me. That is not a question. But oh, you do? All right.
It's just the old-fashioned way.
Gracie, will you collect the index cards that are in the air? So I'm not seeing any UDL tweet questions.
I'll do it.
Woohoo! See what we got. And Gracie's going to bring me the index card question.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay, we got one here. Can you go back and get those others? Okay. All right. Since material is given using UDL strategies, will testing ever yield valid results, i.e. only one digital option to answer questions? Okay, so that depends on your goal. All right, so I think about this. Are you talking about like standardized testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like if they are so used to having like, you can write it, you can do
Right.
it digitally, like is it actually accurate?
So two things. In our standardized testing now, there are universal options that are built in. Not UDL, because UDL has the student being a part of it. But there are more support options on computerized versions now, okay? Number two, that is one test at the end of the year, right? We have that one-size-fits-all standardized test. But we know that when we use multiple means, we are going to have more success with our students. So our goal in using UDL is to build their confidence, to build their skill set, to impact their ability to master objectives. So that's our goal in applying the UDL framework, not to prep them for that test. But in the districts that use UDL, like there's one in Indiana that's used it for 10 years, their standardized test scores have gone up in every subgroup since they've been using UDL. But I would never say that you can connect those two things because the UDL framework is so big. But what I would say is I would not use the UDL framework because my kids are going to have to take a standardized test. Because we know UDL makes them stronger students who are more confident and have more expert learning skills. Is that kind of answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you talk to teachers that do not know about UDL and do not want to incorporate movement, tangibles, autonomy? Okay, so the change process is really hard. People don't often become ready to change until they're dissatisfied with what they're doing. It's really hard in schools that have like great scores and the kids follow directions and they just do things very traditionally, that they're still leaving kind of kids in the margins. So a couple of things is start small, give people really small things, don't overwhelm them with the whole framework at once. And then if you're the person that wants to make that change, a lot of times I'll encourage people to find like-minded individuals who want to do things differently. Find that group, make your own learning community, find people who think the way that you do. That really helps a lot when it comes to that change process. And then showing people how using UDL can make the student's life better and their own life better. So show them the examples, get them out of their classroom and into other classrooms where it's working. That's a huge click for people, is seeing it in action and seeing successes that other people have had. How does UDL and executive function impact the community and parents? Great question. EF supports, if we can use them at home and in school, it's going to be such a better experience for kids. I'm actually working with one feeder pattern in Baltimore County, all of their stat teachers together to design work on EF and UDL, and we have 2 parent community sessions that are built in. So that's cool. We're doing that starting next year. So that's a really important piece. Okay, it looks like we have one question up here. Twitter. Okay, one tip for convincing other teachers to implement UDL in their classroom. Oh my gosh, if we only had to share one tip for implementing. I would think the number one is to think about it as your, it's not something you do, it's something you believe. So we don't often spend time as teachers reflecting on why we do things. It's really easy to get caught up in like the day-to-day grind. And UDL really pushes us to think about that big picture. Why we're in it, why do we do these things? Do you really believe that learner variability is the norm? So that would be my first tip. Think about that. Like, is learner variability the norm? And if it is, what are you going to do about it? And you're going to design for people in the margins because that works better for everybody. So that would be just getting people to like think. I think that's the first tip. You can't go in and be like, you got to do this. You have to do an EF support, or you have to offer multiple means. If we go in and tell people they have to do something, then we're missing that really important conceptual piece of getting people to think first. So I think just conversations and thinking first is more important than telling them that they have to do something. All right, so I've got three more door prizes to give away here. And I'm gonna give those away. I wanna know, let's see, our goal today was, the goals were about executive function supports, learning environment design. So I wanna know if you experienced, first question, did you experience any executive function supports? As a learner yourself today, what executive function supports were here for you? Lindsay.
Being able to break up and talk with our groups and share ideas and then come back as like a whole room and share.
Yeah, what else is in front of you?
Paper, so we were writing notes on it.
Guided notes and checklists?
And a checklist.
Yep.
And the cup.
All right. Good job, good job, good job. Okay. Anybody else can answer a question about learning environment design? We ended with talking about UDL at the classroom level. We got down to the nitty-gritty. Can anybody talk about how UDL could be used to guide whole schools or whole districts? Anybody have anything to say about that they learned about that big picture of UDL impacting learning environments in schools or districts?
That it just creates like a sense of community and belonging, that every student can feel like that they're smart and that I haven't really written down, I forgot. And that they can actually succeed in their learning environment, even if they may be different than their peers.
Great. And I want to summarize that because one of the biggest misconceptions about UDL is that it's just about a lesson or a unit plan. And it is. It does impact our lesson planning and our unit planning. But it's even bigger than that. It is the framework of beliefs about teaching and learning. And that can be used to guide systems in schools. So it is a framework that's used for that type of decision making, but also in that classroom level. So, all right, I want to end. Oh, and who is in the room, who thinks they are from the farthest point away in this room? Where are you from, Marissa? No, farthest point away. Love you. Where are you from? Long Island. Anybody else? Columbus, Ohio. Anyone else? Anyone else? El Salvador. Ooh, this is gonna be hard. Okay. All right. Last one. Where are you guys from?
Sydney.
Sydney, Australia? Oh, yay! All right, good, good. So we have two visitors here from Sydney, Australia. They're with us today, tomorrow, and Friday, learning about UDL in Maryland. So if you want to take some time to introduce yourselves to these lovely ladies, they are elementary educators at the Shore School in Sydney, Australia. So I want to end right now by saying thank you. You guys have my email. Oh, you're so cute, Dr. Neville. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I super hope that you guys are lucky enough one day to get to go back and present to people that have like molded you as a teacher. This is really cool. Sorry. So, all of my former students are sitting in here. That's so cool. Oh my gosh. So, the person that made me want to be a teacher, my 6th grade teacher, is in the room. I was a teacher in Baltimore County before I came to Towson University, and Dr. Neville plucked me out of BCPS and brought me here and gave me some amazing opportunities to get my doctorate and learn from an amazing faculty. So I always call her my little fairy godmother for making that happen for me. And then when I came to Towson, the faculty here, I have so many people on this faculty who have been here for a long time or who joined new, but they've all become friends and mentors, and you guys are really lucky to be in their hands because the talent on this faculty, I travel nationally, is unmatched, the people that are in this department. So you are really lucky. And finally, I get to present to my parents, who are my first teachers. How's that for being really lucky and surrounded by awesome teachers? So good luck to all of you. You are in the most amazing profession there is. If you come to BCPS and you need anything, you use your Towson network and you find me. I'm an alum too. All right? Congratulations, everybody.